What is going on, everyone? Got an awesome video today, but I wanted to let everyone know if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. And guys, I know this is a bit of a lengthy video, but I'm asking you, please stick around, watch the whole thing, because you gotta see it all to really understand the point that we're trying to get to here. And I'm telling you, it will be worth it. So sit back and enjoy. What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. I have a really interesting topic to talk about today, guys, and it is an article printed by Go Collect, written by Jake Zalecki. I apologize if I screwed that name up. The title's entitled, as you can see here, Cosmic Ghost Rider, a case study in ignoring later printings. This article was brought to me by a viewer, Steve. Steve, I want to thank you so much if you're watching to bringing this to my attention. Steve had a good perspective on this. He shared a comment that he posted. I don't necessarily believe that me and Steve fully agree here, but I appreciate his take on it and for sharing this with me. And I'm going to go into this article because, guys, honestly, this is one of the strangest articles that I've ever read pertaining to comics. It's so odd. It's almost beyond me. But let's dive into this before I just keep ranting about how odd this is. So you guys might be looking at this article and saying, okay, well, what does this even mean? This is relating. Actually, I was going to say it's relating specifically to, but it's not even very specific because the author goes kind of all over the place. But it's mostly supposed to be an argument against second, third, and fourth printings of one issue being called the first appearance if the first printing of that issue is a first appearance. Let's get into the article, guys. And I'm going to read it along with you guys. So there's been a lot of speculation about second, third, fourth, and nth printings as of late. I'm not exactly sure as to why, but I'll give you some reasons why you should leave these for the readers and should cap your spending at cover price. False premise. The false premise of later printings of a key book is that people that, excuse me, let me start over there. The false premise of later printings of a key book is that because there are fewer of them out there, it makes them more valuable because of the scarcity. Scarcity always plays a role in the collectability of anything, which is true. But what is the scarcity of? Exactly. Okay. So what he means by that is there's scarcity of this book, but what weight does the book itself hold? Defining the first appearance. There seems to be a misconception of first appearance when it comes to later printings of comic books. This is where I completely disagree with this writer here. If a character is introduced in comic book number 8, then comic book number 8 first printing is his first appearance. If comic book number 8 is released in August 2020 and the second printing is released in September 2020, the second printing is by definition not the first appearance of the character. False. First off, whose definition are you going by? Your own? Let's dive into it further, though. The character was already printed a month prior. The reason for these later printings is because people heard about the character or the comic after it was already introduced. It got hot, obviously. They wanted to read it themselves or collect it, whatever the case may be. They are reader copies meant to be read by readers. Okay, he's stating this is fact, but this is merely his opinion. And then he goes and says, yes, comic books can be read. I feel like this is such bad taste that he threw this in there. Yes, comic book can be read. So he's basically attacking anybody that collects because of speculation hype or variant covers or whatever the reason may be, and you don't read comic books. I felt like that was extremely distasteful. It's a sarcastic, cynical blow, and it's unneeded. It's like you don't toot your horn and sit on top of a pedestal. That's kind of how I felt about that. Okay. He uses Cosmic Ghost Rider as an example. He says he loves Cosmic Ghost Rider. I think he's a great character, and I think he'll be around in the Marvel Universe for a while. Da-da-da-da-da. That doesn't matter. But let's look at the rise in price of later Thanos 13 printings. Fellow Go Collect blogger Matt Tuck, I'm not even going to get into my opinion on stuff that he's published. Well, maybe I will a little later in the video. He's covered the rising price of later printings of Thanos 13. I'm going to do my best to show why these values aren't going to keep climbing, but rather fall off the cosmological cliff once people wise up. First off, this book is a few years old already, so, and I know, in terms of longevity with comics, that's still new, considering. But let's look at what they're trying to dive into. And again, look, he's stating his opinion here, saying why he believes these values are going to fall and not climb. He talks about release dates, and he goes to show here the Thanos 13 first print was released in November 22nd, 2017. The second print was released in December of that same year. The third print, and let's read what he says here about the third print. You might think this book came right on the heels of the second print. Not quite. Doesn't really matter. The third printing arrived on comic stands everywhere on April 20th, 2018. That's a serious time gap from the first printing. That's true. It's a decent amount of time. Then he goes into Thanos 14, the first printing, which was released in December of 2017, which predated the third printing. It even predated the second printing of Thanos 13. Okay. So the second and third printings of Thanos 13 didn't come out until after the issue 14. Guys are going to have to add all this in for context here, but we're getting to the point. Thanos 15 came out in January, which was still before the third printing of 13. Okay, and he has them listed here in terms of release date in chronological order by release date. Okay, and he goes on to say, I don't know how else to tell you that not only is Thanos 13 third printing not the first cover appearance of Cosmic Ghost Rider, but it's not even close. It was released 4 months after Thanos 14. Now let's look at the covers. Thanos 14 is Cosmic Ghost Rider on the cover. But here's the thing, guys. I don't know about you guys, but I'm reading this article. At what point in time did he talk about cover appearances? We could go back. We could go back. What did he say here? He said here, let's go right here. Defining the first appearance. There seems to be a misconception of first appearance when it comes to later printings of comic books. If a character is introduced in comic book 8, that means in the book itself, not on the cover, right? If they're introduced in comic book number 8, then comic book number 8 first printing is his first appearance. If comic book number 8 is released in August and the second printing is released in September, the second printing by definition is not the first appearance of the character. He's specifically talking to the context of the character in the book. And he's making an argument for it, which I disagree. But then all of a sudden he gives us all the, okay, let's look at this book, for example. And then he makes an argument down here stating, I don't know how else to tell you that not only is Thanos 13 third printing not the first cover appearance, but it's not even close. Who was arguing first cover appearances? No one. Nobody. Here's an example. We know that that Thor 5 is the first full appearance of Cosmic Ghost Rider. We know that Thor 5 is the first appearance of Black Winter. But we know that, I believe, and don't quote me, but I do believe it's the second printing, right? Or it's a variant, or it's another variant that was released later. I don't know if they consider it a second. I think they might consider it a second printing variant of Thor 4 that actually had Black Winter on the cover, and that is the first cover of Black Winter. This has to, when you talk about cover appearances, this is a whole different argument. Cover appearances obviously have to do with what was released first. If a character is fully introduced in the book itself and isn't on a cover for months, it doesn't matter if a new book in chronological order, like if the first appearance is number 5 and you don't see him on a cover until number 10 and that came out months later, that's going to be their first cover appearances no matter how many times they were seen in the comic beforehand, right? But if the character makes multiple appearances in a book but was never on a cover, and somebody decides to do a second or third or fourth printing variant cover before they have another appearance on a cover later down the line in later issues, that is still their first cover appearance. Nobody's arguing that. Nobody is sitting here saying that Thanos 13 third printing is the first cover appearance. Nobody is. And then let's go on to say what he says. Mislabeled labels. He goes on to say the problem is when grading companies like CGC and CBCS add first appearance of who's it now to a later printing. It's not. The first appearance or cameo is the earliest date a comic book was released. This is false. So now he's going back to his argument about the context of the character in the book. Because I'm going to tell you guys, CGC and CBCS does not call Thanos 13 third printing the first cover appearance of Galactic Ghost or Cosmic Ghost Rider. This whole section right here of him arguing about first cover appearances is completely null and void and irrelevant to his original thesis and argument whatsoever. And then he goes down in here and goes back to the context of the book, saying what the problem is when CGC and CBCS and these companies mislabel a book. He goes in to say you can't have a print of an issue run for 6 months and call them all first appearances. That's not how time works. For a business perspective, it makes total sense. I'm not even going to get into that. Let's look at what he says real quick here, saying later printing wrap-ups. That's why the second, third, fourth, 10th, 15 printings are going to be worth nothing when everyone realizes this. They are reader copies that meet the demand for popularity. I mean, who can blame Marvel for providing the market what the market wants? And that's fine. I'll be right there paying the cover price for these issues, but I won't be dropping C notes anytime soon. You shouldn't either. Again, look, I'm going to state it like this. This guy is salty over second, third, and fourth prints. He can express that as an opinion and say, look, I don't want to buy it. I would say for you guys not to invest in it either. That's his opinion, and he has a right to have an opinion. But he injects his opinion as fact so often through this article. And really, his opinion, even if you have an opinion, your opinion is, you can write off an opinion as being a invalid opinion if you at least don't have a solid argument to back up said opinion, right? I mean, if an opinion has any weight, why even have that type of an opinion? He doesn't have weight here. He's injecting stuff that's like it's seeming to be fact that's not true. I'm going to read what he said right here. He's talking about second and third printings being they are reader copies that meet the demand for popularity, and he says that they are going to be worth nothing when everyone realizes this. Guys, have you checked the market? Have you checked the market for Venom, I believe, third printing? Have you checked the market for ASM 361, second printing, first appearance of Carnage? That book in a 9.8 is selling for over $300. That book in a high raw grade is selling for $80 to $100. Yes, they never will probably hold the value of the first printing, but they hold value. That's one area where he's completely wrong. Completely 100% wrong. The other area that he's completely wrong, and he's injecting a outlandish claim that I've never heard before, is that if if a character has a first appearance in a book, and that issue is either having a second appearance, a second printing, a third printing, or a reprinting of any sort, and it comes out after this character showed up in a different issue, that it's no longer their first appearance. Let me show you how illogical and ridiculous that is, okay? We know that Hulk 181 is the first full appearance of Wolverine, right? We know that there's been countless reprints. Now, look, a second appearance, a second printing, a reprinting, they aren't identically the same thing, but they're ultimately in the same family, so to say. They are technically additional printings after what is called the first print release. So they're in the same family of categories here. So we know that the Hulk 181 copy or comic book has been reprinted multiple times in Marvel Masterpieces or the Masterworks that came out in the 90s. Toy Biz, probably, I don't know if there's been a Toy Biz reprint of Hulk 181, but we've seen that with key books. And we know there's the facsimile reprint that just came out, I think, like 2 years ago. The $3.99 price tag one with the barcode. Okay, by this writer's logic, that reprint of Hulk 181 shouldn't be considered a reprinting the first appearance of Wolverine. It should be considered his thousandth appearance, because we know that Wolverine between 1974, was it 1974? Was it? Yeah, I believe it was 1974. That Hulk 181 came out, and 2018 when this reprinting of this issue hit the shelves. We would need to count chronologically every single appearance that Wolverine made, which is that, let's just say he made 2,020 appearances. It's probably even more than that. That means that facsimile reprinting of Hulk 181 is technically his 21st appearance. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. No, it is the reprinting of Wolverine's first appearance. Just like a second printing of Carnage is considered Amazing Spider-Man 361 second printing of the first appearance of Carnage. And that's exactly how it's stated on CGC and CBCS and in every other industry standard labeling out there. It is a second printing of a first appearance. I never heard such a random, just out of this world argument before in my life whatsoever. And the funny thing about it is, guys, if you go into the comments here, so many are they're like, Jake, dude, like, what are you even talking about? Because ultimately, to me, it doesn't make a lot of coherent sense. It doesn't make a lot of coherent sense. And I'm going to go over a few of the comments with you. Like this guy says, he says, I completely disagree with you. I view issues by issue number, not the date it was released. So for Thor number 5, for example, I think Black Winter's first full appearance is for all the printings of Thor number 5, with the most desirable being the soon to be released third printing. I don't know what he's talking about there because I'm not familiar with the third prints, but he says this logic has been placed for decades. He uses Amazing Spider-Man 361 as an example. It's always going to be considered Carnage's first full appearance, but the second printing of that. But look at what he says here. Look at what the author says here. He now injects, people can spend all the money they want on later prints, but they'll never hold up in the end for value. It's a solid pump and dump scheme. Let's hope you're on the pump side. That is not true. Dude, there are so many second, even look at the second. Okay, okay. I'm gonna give you guys another example, but let's go into this. He goes on to say that then he starts injecting more kind of straw man arguments, saying, well, I was saying that if the second and third printings are released like a long time after the first one, ASM, he literally said this, and I quote verbatim, 361 is a different animal. It was the second printing was released like only a couple weeks after the first printing. He said it's the ones that are released like months after that hold no weight. So now he's trying to inject defenses to go down a rabbit hole and talk circles around what he was trying to make clear in his actual article. But here's another example against that. Look at the reprinting of Amazing Spider-Man 101, the first appearance of Morbius. This reprinting came out in, I believe, 1991, and it's not a Marvel masterpiece. It's not a facsimile. It's actually considered a second printing, and it's got the silver cover. That came out 20 years, about 20 years after the first printing. And no, it'll never hold the value. It'll never hold the value of the first printing. But high grades of that book are selling for over $100. He has no real data to back up his opinion, which is one issue. But two, when you state your opinion as fact, it's extremely problematic. This is what I said. Respectfully, where do you get the ground to stand on making statements like this? They'll never hold their value. And I said, are you familiar with 361? And just, I'm not going to go over it because I said all this with you guys. You could state your opinion on it. You believe second, third, and nth printing should be coined first appearances or not. It's your opinion. But to sit here and state that they are merely reader copies and that people need to wise up, and then you make that passive aggressive knock about, yes, people do read comics. You are merely pushing your own biased narrative. Market has dictated against everything you stated for decades, and your attempt to state a sour opinion as fact isn't a good look for Go Collect. He goes on to reply and say, of course, my narrative is biased. I'm writing it. All these comments are biased. We're trying to push forth our own ideas. I get the ground that I stand on because I don't know, guys. I mean, he just goes on. Da, 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 da. It's just hype is never really really good for anything. I mean, again, that's dude. Hype has been around since really the 70s and is what's driven the industry. Hype hype can have negative attributes to it, and it depends on how every entity involved operates. We saw how hype damaged the industry in the 90s because the hype pushed the publishers to mass market, right? But we live and learn. Now there's another type of hype, and it's driving the market right now. Hype is never really good for anything. That's not just an opinion, but it's just not true. It's false. It's like you can have an opinion and say 2 plus 2 equals 5, but you'll never prove your opinion to be true. And that's what this individual is doing here. You have your opinion, you're stating it as fact, but your opinion is so invalid that you will never be able to prove it as fact. It's that bad. And I replied to this, and it's not showing up right now, but I went on to say, like, look, again, in your article, you need to take the tone of opinion. You need to take the tone and present it as your biased opinion and not as fact. And try to take this holier than thou tone and shove it down people's throats. And try to be so cynical and downplay people that collect that don't read. That was a snark, jab at folks that collect that don't read. Are you serious? Let folks collect for whatever reason they want to collect, whether it's because they want to spec on books or because they buy the third print variants because they like the art. And oh shoot, now the third appearance of Venom is a third print of Venom, number 3 is worth hundreds of freaking dollars, and you're salty about it maybe because you didn't buy the book yourself, and now you're mad and you have a platform and you want to come rant on your platform stating something about some linear time frame that has never been even brought up in 80 plus years of superhero comic book collecting. It just makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me. I've never heard this argument before, ever. And I've been collecting for over 30 plus years. This guy says, Joe says, just because it's a late printing does not make it a first appearance. The story itself still contains the first appearance. Exactly. And the reason that they're sought after is because they featured the character on their cover of the first appearance. I don't know what he's talking about there, but I think there was an argument to say, like, even a third printing, like, if there's a third printing that it ends up being the first cover appearance of a character, it's still going to be sought after. Like Thor 4 being the first cameo of Black Winter, but the second printing having the first cover appearance. We know that it's not the first full appearance, and it probably will never be as valuable as Thor 5. But Thor 4 second printing might be more valuable than Thor 4 first printing. Does that make sense? Because people might value the first time we see this character on the cover next to their first cameo. And that's just a fact, and that's demand of the industry. This guy, Frank, says this is a weird take and completely subjective. This just isn't how first appearances are established in comics, so to just claim otherwise is strange. First appearances are and have always been issue related. Absolutely. Here's where Jake says ASM 361 is a different animal because the second print was released very quickly. Null and void already gave an example to that with ASM 101, first appearance of Morbius. Null and void. This is so strange, guys. So strange. There was one more comment that I wanted to show to you guys before we wrap up here. But look at this. It's like he's changing his tone now. He says, "Yes, the comic book community has decided this with their wallets for decades. Rarely, and I mean very rarely, are later printings worth close to the first printing." End of story. Jake, that's not the end of story. That wasn't your argument in the first place. You said they were worth nothing. You said they were toilet paper. You say they were worth nothing but reader copy cover price issues. Now you're saying, yeah, yes, in capitals, they're rarely worth as much as the later printings are rarely worth as much as the first printings. That's not what you came out and said. Because the fact that a 9.8 ASM 361 is probably worth, $1,000 at this point, and a second printing 9.8 is worth 350, is the complete opposite of what you were saying. The fact that a first printing of ASM 101 in a high grade is probably worth over $1,000 right now, and the reprinting is probably worth over $100 right now, is not what you were originally saying whatsoever. You said they weren't anything. You said they were freaking toilet paper cover price reader copies for people that read books. But if I would have went and bought the second printing of ASM 101 off the shelves for $125 when it came out in 1990 or 91, I'd be sitting on a $100 book right now. You can't inject straw man arguments and talk circles around us just because people are showing you up in the comments of your own post. And you do it in a way that tries to allow you to say you're taking credit for what they're saying. To say, yeah, no, I meant that. No, you didn't. And it's not the end of story. Your last word doesn't dictate the fact that you're right, because you are wrong. And Jared is absolutely right. They have spoken. They have spoken with their wallets. And that market demand is completely different than what Jake is stating here. Then he says, it's the recent phenomenon that I'd like to reanalyze with this post. Oh, good Lord. Then he says, I think we as a community ought to look at these later printings and cover appearances. Yes, the market has decided favorably for now. He's completely changing his tone. He's completely changing his tone. All right, guys. Before I end this here, I want to read this last comment. This is hilarious from Jake, the author. He says, Thanos and Venom later printings have enjoyed a healthy Go Collect bump from bloggers posting on and on about their value. So now he's giving credit to his company that he's writing for. It's because of bloggers on Go Collect bumping it. And that's why they're valuable. Okay, I'll refrain from using an absolute, but let's say the vast majority of later printings aren't more valuable than their first print counterparts. This feels a lot like I have a lot of later prints and I want them to be valuable. Look at what Frank replies with. It doesn't matter if someone, quote, wants them to be valuable. They are. Oh my gosh. Frank, I love you, man. I don't know you, but I love you. That's it. I don't even need to read the rest of Frank's comment. He killed it with that. Mic drop. It doesn't matter if someone wants them to be valuable. Jake, you're shooting yourself in the foot. They are. And Jake had the nerve to talk about economics like in a comment above. Guys, I'm dumbfounded by this. So, that's my video, guys. And look, for the sake of Jake as an author on Go Collect, I feel he needs to hold himself to more integrity. And he has a powerful platform. With great power comes great responsibility. And I feel like he needs to get off his high horse and humble himself. He has the ability to influence collectors in the community. And I'm glad that he has this platform. But I feel, once again, I talked about this with Key Collector Comics, and being transparent with information. Jake, respectfully, I feel this is not being transparent with information. I believe it's not you being transparent in your opinion. I believe you are now talking circles around collectors. You are demeaning anyone that tries to state fact to the lack of validity that your opinion is trying to dictate. Like I said, Jake can absolutely believe that, you know what, my name's Jake, and here I am using my platform. I really don't like that second, third, fourth of printings are called first appearances still, and here's why I don't like it. He's not doing that. He's stating that they're not, that they're this and that they're that. No, Jake, they are what the market dictates them to be. They are first appearances in second and third and fourth print. That's what they are. And no, they're not just reader copies. They are valuable, some more than others. Yes, they probably will never hold up to the first prints. Nobody denied that. There is nothing going on here with misleading labels when it comes to CGC or CBCS. The only thing that I find misleading is this article. That's what I have to say about this, guys. Again, I'm passionate about this stuff, and really, if you guys think my tone is too harsh, my tone is countering the tone that I felt Jake gave us. So rightfully, that if he wants to go to battle, if he wants to go to court, so to say, and present his argument, I'm going to stand there. I'm Tom Cruise. He's Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth. I'm going to come at you like that. Dish it, but be willing to take it. And at the end of the day, it's all respect. I want nothing but the best for Go Collect and Jake, and his ability to use his platform for what he uses it for. But I'm going to sit here and stand firm and call people out the way I see it and say, hey, let's put the facts on the table and have a discussion. So, thank you all for watching. Leave your comments and your thoughts below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Until next time.